Ma'am, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Fifi, for having me.
I suppose the first question, what have you been up to since you left?
Well, I've been working, probably you know, maybe you don't. I'm very passionate about mathematics and science. And the World Economic Forum report, your 2016-2017 Global Competitive Report, puts us at number 138 out of 138 in the world. And that's my obsession at the moment, and I've really been busy with that. But I've also been engaging a lot with organized formations in South Africa, some of whom had contested local government elections, and wow, it actually looks very promising. Thank you.
So you've been quite busy.
Very busy.
So you're passionate about maths and science, but you're
Yes.
also passionate about politics, and you're also passionate about South Africa. And now, since you are no longer part of the ANC ruling party, there's a lot of interest in whether you'll be starting your own political party. Can you tell us if this is the avenue that you are going?
I'm not going to be starting a new political party per se, but this vehicle that we're going to have, this political vehicle that we are going to have, is going to have a new name, because we have different political parties that have already contested local government elections at local government level. And most of them started off as civic society, and some of them started off as NGOs, such as the Forum for Service Delivery. Started off as an organization that was distributing school shoes to young people in poor schools. And they have come and approached me and said, listen, why don't you put all of us together? And I have a lot of people that are coming from the DA, from the EFF, from, you know, you name it, from COPE or whatever. And I have these organizations that have contested elections before, such as the United Front of Civics. And all these people, we are coming together to form this new political vehicle. And maybe if we didn't have just the proportional representation system in South Africa, maybe we could have contested in our different constituencies, but we are constrained by the fact that you have proportional representation in South Africa. And this is not your typical political party, because we are going to be issue-based as opposed to be ideologically based.
Right. So just help me understand, some of the members from the DA, EFF, COPE that you've mentioned, these are
yes, they were members. They were members
who are not happy, for their own reasons.
And you must understand this thing. There's something that has to be explained in South Africa. If you look at what happened at VETS about a few weeks ago, the EFF won 12 out of 15 seats, but the poll, the voter turnout was actually 8%.
Right.
Now that tells you something is happening here. And again, the fact that the ANC did not win the elections in Johannesburg, in Tshwane, in Ekurhuleni, and in Nelson Mandela Bay did not necessarily translate to the EFF or the DA winning the elections. Right. You know, they didn't gain any more votes. So there is that missing middle. And South Africans, unfortunately, they are not very happy with the current political parties. And we are looking at that space. We wanted to occupy that space.
All right,
basically.
so it's a cocktail,
it's a cocktail,
civil society organization.
And again, it really represents unity in South Africa, because I don't think we've really worked hard enough in building social cohesion in our society. And again, people are more concerned about the way our economy is performing. And to be honest with you, I think people really want jobs and more jobs. And they really wanted to have people that are going to address the education system in South Africa. We've been sitting with this very poor education system for a very long time. That is why we are very clear. We are issue-based. We are not going to be putting ourselves in the ideological space. So rest assured, we are not going to be calling for denationalization of banks or something like that, because we care about what South Africans want at this stage.
Right. So, Ms. Khoza, you've mentioned some of the issues that I assume you're going to be tackling, being education, being jobs. What other issues?
You know, the education, we believe that the inequalities that we have in South Africa, there is no way you can address these inequalities unless you fix the education system. We have to fix the education system. Secondly, we also need to be able to deal with corruption. And by the way, corruption is not a victimless crime. We are all victims of corruption. We need to root it out. In other words, we have to begin as South Africans to say, this is the leader that we want. We have to be explicit. We have to be unambiguous about the moral value system and the ethical, the ethics of that leader. Sure. And for so long, we've been sitting with leaders that we elect, even though we know that they are severely compromised on the moral and ethical platform. So we want to be dealing with that. We
but
do
how?
also
because
need...
How? Sorry to interject, because South Africans don't vote for the leader necessarily. We vote for the party, and the party members vote for the leader.
And that is why it matters who is leading whatever political party.
Right.
It matters a lot. We know what has happened with having President Jacob Zuma as the president of the ANC and therefore of the country. So it becomes very important that South Africans don't look at only the party. They must look at the people that are in that list that is going to be going to parliament on behalf of that political party. And that is very easy to do.
Would that not require constitutional change?
No, it's not. It's not. Remember, whenever we go for elections, there are posters everywhere. And we see the faces of the people that are actually on those posters. And that will tell you who is that person. You need to go and Google that person. I mean, we live in this information age. You can know everybody and everybody else. So South Africans can actually do that.
Thanks to the internet. But Ms. Khoza, I'm interested in finding out what influence your civil society will have in Parliament, will have in steering some of the issues that you're fighting for in the right direction?
That's actually a very good question, because one of the things that we have observed is that there is a disconnect between what happens in Parliament and what happened and the needs and the demands of civil society. We saw what happened on the 7th of April 2017. Civil society, they marched. They even came on the 8th of August. They came to Parliament. But did we listen? No, we didn't. Now we are trying to come up with a model where we are going to be having a hybrid kind of system. But that is going to be an internal arrangement between the party, the measure of these parties that we are talking about, and civil society organizations. In other words, if, say, for argument's sake, suppose abahlali basemjondolo wanted to be part of us, they could nominate somebody who is going to be representing their interest. But that person will be coming through our ticket. And however, we won't have the right to remove that person. It will be the abahlali basemjondolo as a good example. I'm just making a good example here. So we are trying to come up with that. It's a new model. It's still at its infancy. It has never been tried and tested
so
before.
You're disrupting.
So I'm disrupting. We are living in the age of disruption. So let me disrupt the way we do things.
No,
and I'm
sure.
happy to do that.
No, for sure, Ms. Khoza, because unlike it seems like you're taking a different approach to fighting for what you believe is important for South Africa, different to that of the former finance minister, President Gordhan, who is still an MP, who is doing that fight from inside. I mean, which method do you think will be more effective, or I suppose only time will tell?
You know, let me be honest with you. It's extremely, extremely difficult to leave the ANC, because when you are part of the liberation movement, you become so attached. Like, I'm a very good example of that. I spent more time within the ANC than with my biological parents. I mean, I became associated with the ANC when I was 12. And I left the ANC 35 years later. Of course, I've just sold myself out now. Here, you can calculate how old I am. I'm so old. You don't look. So I am saying to you, it's very difficult for them to actually understand that a liberation movement, and this has been proven, I mean, each state after state in the African continent, liberation movements, they always have a difficulty of transitioning into the new democratic constitutional dispensation. You can even tell with the type of language that we use. We talk about directives, you know, we talk about, you know, deployment. We are being deployed. This is the underground language, the language that is inconsistent with the principles of accountability and principles of transparency. You know, you don't question your leadership. So I'm saying I do feel for them that they still feel that they need to rescue this organization. It's a 103-year brand. You know, the ANC is old. So I do feel for them, but the reality of the situation is that I am convinced that the ANC will never self-correct unless it is disrupted. We are living in the age of algorithms. We are living in the age of robotics, in the age of artificial intelligence. Everything is going to be disrupted. And so even the way we think about the parties that we vote for, we need to disrupt that. I'm a disruptor and I'm proud of it.
No, fantastic. Ma'am, just as we close, we're heading into the ANC elective conference now. First of all, how do you see that race panning out? Is there a candidate that you are supporting? And secondly, Trevor Manuel yesterday was quoted as saying he sees the conference essentially collapsing with taxpayers' money using to grease the wheels of that conference. But your thoughts?
Frankly, ideally, I shouldn't be commenting on the ANC and what is going to transpire from the ANC because I've left them. And I left them because I don't believe in any of the leaders that are contesting the presidential, that are contesting in the presidential race. It becomes a problem when you have to choose a better devil. I would rather choose between a saint and a devil. Then it becomes easier for me. So, but notwithstanding that, the reality of the situation is that that ANC conference is not going to come up with any positive results as far as I'm concerned, even if it does go ahead. The politics of patronage are so entrenched. And the reality of the situation is that you cannot be a winner unless you are going to protect the very people who are part of the system of patronage politics. So either way, to me, as a citizen, as a South African, frankly, I don't care. I want people to vote for my party.
We shall wait for that party to come. Ms. Makhosi Khoza, thank you so much for your time. Great conversations. That, of course, was ANC or former ANC MP and a social activist, Makhosi Khoza.